To have a real change in gender equality really requires a very holistic approach. It has so many layers that is very difficult for just governments or just advocates to achieve.
It's been 25 years since the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the most progressive roadmap for the empowerment of women and girls everywhere.
So we are 25 years after when the world agreed on certain measures and certain actions in Beijing, and why there has been a lot of progress in health, education, life expectancy of women in general. There are still a lot of issues remaining.
So why is real change agonisingly slow for the majority of the women and girls around the world?
One is about women's participation in politics. And of course, this has a general principled issue that if the world's population is half and half women and men, then in terms of decision making and policy making, we should also see similar proportions, so that essentially we are drawing on 100% of human capability in decision making. So why this is not addressed, I think it will be very difficult to significantly address gender equality in policy making. The second main issue is when we're looking at the economic sphere. Women's participation in the economy, in the labor market, the gender pay gap is still 20% in our region, for example.
Multiple obstacles remain unchanged in law and in culture, and experts say it is a vicious cycle.
One of the ways to address this vicious circle is really going back to the level of education, even at the secondary and then the tertiary level. How we can right now change the education system and the focus of education, especially related to women, so that in 5 years, and it will be relatively short term, but I think we will see significant changes in the job market because of digitalization. We're already seeing it. How we can address it now so that they will be better equipped to participate in this. Even when we look at the skill set of women, there is an even wider gap between women and men when it comes to the area of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So by investing in increasing the skill sets of women in these kinds of technological areas, and especially in digitalization, would already increase their ability to compete equally with men, which right now is one of the key sources of the problem of their employability. So I think the analysis of very concrete problems and very concrete gaps between men and women, especially in education and the labor market, would help us get out of this vicious circle if we address something now that we know will affect women even at a higher proportion in years to come.
An Oxfam report blames a flawed and sexist economic system for the economic inequality, which values the wealth of a few privileged, mostly men, over the unpaid and underpaid work done primarily by women and girls.
So if governments were to invest in the care economy, that would release a significant labor force to participate in the proper economy, and also it would address some of the challenges that women have being tied to these issues. Then there is gender-based violence. Still 1 out of 3 women experience gender-based violence globally. So this is a very deep-rooted psychological condition that could be created in women that affects other parts of their lives. So it's not just about their safety and security in the home or elsewhere, but their ability to really be 100% contributing and confident member in the society.
So how do we approach the unfinished business of empowering women and girls?
While these challenges are still there, we really need to look at them together. And when we look at them together, what we see is actually one of the root causes of all of this is still the remaining gender bias that is so deep-rooted in cultural setups in certain communities. It's the way how the labor market is looking at women. It's the way how women have access, for example, to certain skills, education, and so forth that already predetermines their ability to participate in the labor market. And this is where it's very important that we don't tackle gender equality just talking about women and then just women advocating for women. I think it's extremely important that we take the men and the boys and the women and the girls at the same time as advocates for gender equality, and realize that gender equality is really a core for a success of a good society and a good economy. And once that realization is building into the social fabric of cultures, families, education system, that's when we will see significant change. So one of the things that UNDP is especially paying attention now is women's political participation. So on this 25th anniversary, as part of this campaign, we are launching an interactive website called Equal Futures, which essentially is focusing on women's political participation in parliaments.
The global average for women's representation in Parliament has increased from 11% to 24% in the last 20 years. But it's nowhere near gender parity.
It's not an issue of educating men that women can do something, but a lot of the times women also somehow have a bigger trust in men. So it's not a very simple picture. But I think what can be done is one, to give a little bit more visibility what happens when women are actually in power. Not just necessarily in power of being the decision makers, but who can influence decision making. And we can see examples in many countries. For example, when women parliamentarians picked up the issue of legislation on child marriage, for example, that you can demonstrate it to the society that these issues have not been addressed. So if we can demonstrate some of the things that happen because of this at least increased equality, I think then that's one incentive or one input for people to change their views.
And on this International Women's Day, here is a message from a woman working for the empowerment of women and girls.
So I think the key step for any woman who wants to be a leader, whether it's at a small scale or large scale, doesn't matter, is to believe in themselves. That it's not about being a woman or a man, it's about what you know and what you can do. Know your substance, that you're talking from experience, you're talking from substance, you're talking from understanding issues. And I think then people look beyond a lot of the stereotyping, whether it's about men or women or the color of your skin. They will start looking at you based on what you're saying and what you're doing. So your words and your actions will demonstrate what you stand for and not your look and not your gender.